I'm gonna give this cell phone a couple seconds to decide if it's gonna record. Mm. All right, good. We might be good. Um, so let's see. I talked about the general overview about Perscalis. It's an IT program where they basically help you with career development tasks. They help you with everything from scratch, but by the time you start, you'll probably already have a resume of some form. You're probably already gonna have like a career direction because you would have gone through like interviewing, and you probably would have gone through the tech prep work, and you probably would have done a bunch of stuff before. So that's what I want to talk about next. So I did the general overview topic first. Let me write these down. Um, and then let's see, what time do we have now? Jeez, it's already 7:04 p.m. Um, I might be able to squeeze in one or two more of these episodes before it gets too dark in here. This car doesn't have a battery that works in it, so we don't have lights in here. So once it gets dark, I'm not gonna be sitting here recording in the dark. I mean, I'm a little weird, but I'm not. I'm not that bad. Let's see. So let's talk about before interviewing. We're gonna talk about before interviewing, and then we're gonna talk about interviewing. Um, so before interviewing, um, let's see, my process before interviewing, and then we're gonna talk about the interviewing part. And then, so basically, before interviewing, what that looked like was I was um in a job support program where you get a counselor that basically helps you with, like, kind of, they want to know what you, what work experience you have, what kind of jobs you want to do. They try to connect you with work or opportunities that lead to potential work. And if you want to do like a trade, they have options to get you into programs that have stipends. In LA, programs like this, like WorkSource, like the Department of Rehabilitation, DOR. Um, in San Diego, there used to be something called Workforce. I don't know if it's still there, but there are a couple types of sites, probably more than just a couple, in Southern California at least. I don't know other states too well or other areas too well, but basically they show you how, like, what the options are, and you can maybe do like HVAC or electrician or different trades, and try to get a foot in the door after the training. So Perscalis doesn't do all that. They do tech stuff. And so through this program that I was already in for job support opportunities, because I was looking for work, for solid work, for something that was more like hourly pay, not like gig work, because I was already doing commission only work. I was already doing gig work, and I was like, you know what? It's good for paying for the stuff I need a little bit, like car insurance, hotspot for my phone, paying for a gym membership, getting groceries that I want, and it wasn't that good for paying for too much other than that. So I was like, this is fine for now, because I was basically trying to work on my health at those times. And so it served its purpose, but I was like, I had left a career already in psychology to try to like transition into something else. Initially, what that was going to be tech sales. So I went through Course Careers. I did tech sales. I did digital marketing. I used the skills. I got commission only work. I got I kind of just made my own like e-commerce kind of little side hustles and stuff from what I learned. But I was like, um, I didn't really land a solid position, and I was still putting in a lot of work without getting hourly pay. Commission only is fine, I think, if you want to get the experience. It's better than sitting around watching TV or like binge watching like Netflix or whatever. To put in the hours and just treat it like you would any job. And I was doing it remotely. I talked to some sites that were more like door to door sales, and I just wasn't having a lot of luck. Even though I got some other certifications through Couriers, I wouldn't say they were worthless, but I spent a lot of time doing job applications, and a lot of time, like, just the job market is not ideal. And the time when I left the more solid mental health work that I was doing for a career, the time when I left that site, like after doing some of this other stuff with course careers training, I was like, let me go back into psych. And I tried it a little bit. It just wasn't a good fit. I had a boss that was like, he just wanted to call me and scream at me over the phone about stuff before he even like double check things. And I was kind of just like, you know what? This is, the job I had before that, at least people were respectful. Like, this person was not. And I'm not used to having a lot of issues with coworkers and bosses or anything like that. Like, that's not common of me. And I was just kind of already having a hard time trying to work on my health. And I was like, I told myself, I'm not dealing with situations where there's like people who can't really manage themselves anymore. I'm not dealing with, roommates who are like that. I'm not dealing with housing situations that are like that. I'm not dealing with bosses that are like that. I'm not dealing with things that are going to be detrimental to my health. I'm trying to work on my health. The whole point of leaving the mental health field was because I felt like I wasn't able to go to the gym. I didn't have energy for that. Didn't have energy for like cooking, my own meals. And so like it was affecting my health because I was so overwhelmed and stressed that after work I didn't have energy for myself. So I was like, realistically, how long can I really keep that up? So I moved back with family and was like, this will be my time to kind of get things settled. That's how I landed with course careers. That's how I landed kind of dabbling back into psychology a little bit in mental health, behavioral health work, and then how I ended up um, being able to get back into something that I had always wanted to do, that I kind of did more for like hobbies. I got into the Raspberry Pi when I was trying to get into grad school. Instead of just sitting around watching TV and stuff, I learned to use Reason Studios, which was Propellerhead Studios back then, or propellerhead.se. It's like this music software. You can make music on your laptop or whatever from home. And I learned how to program a little bit of Python and use the Raspberry Pi. Now, this was like 10, 15 years ago, like when the first Raspberry Pi came out with Arduino and as like its competitor. And it was like new back then. Like, the new Raspberry Pis are like crazy compared to that one. That one was like 25 to $35. The new ones are like very expensive in comparison, and they can do a whole lot more. Those ones, like, you I had my first Raspberry Pi set up to this little like old like black and white TV, and then after that I got this little reverse monitor for like this little TFT monitor. It was like a 4 by 3 inch monitor for like a reverse camera. It was like about the size of a cell phone, but it wasn't like touchscreen, nothing. Like and you could just connect that. I had to get a little Wi-Fi dongle. I used like an old school, just like USB keyboard, like the big desktop keyboard, a desktop USB mouse. Like, I wasn't using anything fancy. And I had that little thing set up, and I was just sitting there. Eventually I got like I think I got like I, I, I adapted like a VGA monitor to like HDMI or something. I don't remember what I did. It was some kind of like, I did some kind of way of adapting a monitor that was actually like a normal sized monitor. But like the old Raspberry Pi, the initial one, was not what they are today. Like it was like the first version where you were literally just like do it yourself, like for real, for real. Like they didn't have like devices already set up for you to like buy with it. Like you were just like in your garage like rummaging through things like I think this will connect and that'll connect and like you had this like Frankenstein kind of thing going on. But that's how I started getting into stuff. Just whenever I had gaps between stuff and I was trying to do something else, career education wise, I took the time to spend time with my brain doing stuff. And it kind of helped because at least I was developing skills. I wasn't feeling like I was just like, oh, I'm trying to apply for schools or take the GRE or do all this stuff and it's just not working out. It was like, no, I'm developing skills along the way. And then fast forward all the way when I go and apply for Per Scholars, lo and behold, it comes up. They're like, "Do you have any experience with tech?" Well, yeah. Like I was doing all these random hobbies, all this time or other things like soft skills. So at least I had something to say. Not everybody's maybe in that position, which is fine. I know I'm a complete nerd, so it's fine. But if you're a complete nerd, this is the class for you. Like trust me, you'll be more than satisfied. Um, like probably more beyond your wildest dreams. But basically, um, so before the interviewing process, this was like years before. If I talk about right before, I was basically just trying to get a foot in the door. That wasn't just applying on LinkedIn and Indeed. I was like, this is clearly not working, and you know, I was like making a little bit of money doing stuff, but I was like, I knew it was bad when I tried to get back into working in psychology. I was like, it's bad when you left a career and then it's not working out well enough in the next path you're trying to take that you go back to the career. You're like, okay, this isn't going well because because I was like, well, it's kind of my fallback. Um, but with fields like psychology, you don't want it to be a fallback. It's like you're working with patients. And I did good work, but I was like, I could tell I was at a place where I was like, I I don't want to be in a position where I feel like I'm gonna be needing to slack just so I can like, handle my own day to day, responsibilities for my own health. So I was like, this isn't gonna be good for me to stay in this field. Um, and of course, I did have a lot of people in my ear who were like, why don't you do this instead? Why don't you do that instead? Why don't you do this instead? Why don't you do that instead? And I know people mean well, but I mean, I did have a lot of people in my ear that were saying stuff that were kind of like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you trying to take these routes to do all this other stuff? Because I'm stubborn and I know what I want to do. And, I had people trying to tell me to do stuff because they thought it was right. And every time I tried to make a different move, they're like, why are you doing something new now? Why are you doing like I wasn't like switching stuff every other day, but they didn't really see it. They're like, why don't you just go back to what you were doing? And it's like, but it's my life. It's my life. It's, my chances, my energy, my health. I'm the one who makes this decision. I'm not going to let other people tell me what to do. And I wasn't not listening, but then that was often in my head where I was kind of like, maybe I'm making a mistake. Maybe trying to take a risk career-wise and education-wise is a bad idea. But the alternative is go work a job in a field. I wasn't licensed in psychology, so there's only a certain amount of money you can make when you're not licensed. And it's not enough to buy a house in Southern California. You're not even going to make enough money to really like afford an apartment. So for yourself. Like you can have roommates and do all that, but it's like, do I really want to be like 55 with roommates? Not really. That's not really what I want. And so, you know, and I'm not saying my situation is exactly how anyone else's situation would go, but um yeah, so I talked to this job counselor, very helpful. They give me the the it was basically a sheet of paper that said like Per Scholas. It was like a flyer, and it just said kind of general information about a class you can take. I'm in LA. It was saying that there's a class in downtown LA. It's like this is when it starts. You have to have all the paperwork in. You're gonna have to do an interview. Um, and if you get admitted, it would start on this date, it would end on that date. It was about a 4 month period. I don't remember if the flyer mentioned that it was remote. There was remote and there was hybrid. Hybrid, like where you had to go to campus multiple days a week. I don't remember if the if in person it said 2 day, like if it was like Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or what. Um, but I do remember I was gonna try to do in person first because it was a little bit shorter. But I was like, I would knock it out faster. I might be a little more motivated, even though I don't live anywhere near downtown. I'd still probably have to leave like an hour and 45 minutes to get there, maybe like 20, 30 minutes in traffic, uh, and then have to like find parking and, get checked in and get like into class and everything. To get there with the big enough buffer of where, okay, you need to like unwind a little bit, use the restroom. Like, so you're not just like running down the street trying to jump in an elevator in like 5 seconds to get to class, like I'd probably have to leave an hour and 45 minutes early. Like I've been to school at Cal State LA. I used to leave maybe 2 hours before class. That's where I got my master's degree. I went to school at UC Irvine for my bachelor's degree after El Camino College. So I transferred from El Camino College to UC Irvine. I'm old. Um, I graduated high school in 2002, so I've been going to school. I went to school for a long time, um, to get into psychology, and then I did try 3 years of a PhD program down in San Diego, which didn't work out for me. But um, again, for health reasons, it was basically because I wasn't able to kind of handle my health enough to actually like get through um, the coursework and do well enough in class. Like that was part of it. There were some other weird politics, but on my end there was that. And I was like, I can't keep having that happen. I can't keep having it happen to where I'm worn out so much, to a point where I can't function, and then things just go south. It already happened, with my PhD program, but that program led me into work. Because I was already a practicum student, I ended up working, and then because you're already working for free, and they're like, well, do you want to just work here full time? And I said yes, and I was working there basically like about 10 years in the field, just working down in San Diego, counting the classes, the 2 years I did through the work through classes. So I just moved up in the company, but there was only so far I could go because I wasn't licensed. Um, and the goal was actually to get a PhD and come back and live in LA and work in research. The goal was not really to work in clinical, but I was good at clinical too. And at a certain point, it was paying the bills, but $18 an hour. Eventually I was making 22 or 23 something an hour, then 24 something an hour. I think when I started wanting to pursue tech sales and digital marketing type stuff, and I was taking online courses, like at the end of the pandemic, but we worked all through the pandemic. We double worked all through the pandemic, which is how I burned myself out. But basically, um, I took one day off a week. So I was working 30, I think I was working 32 hours a week and then they bumped my pay up to 27 an hour, but I was still making less than I would have been when I was making like, I think 25.01 an hour or something like that. I think I started in 2000, in 2020, they opened a new site and I started working there for $24.01 an hour, then $25.01 an hour the next year. I worked there like 2 years, and then I was kind of like, 25.01 an hour is not getting me anywhere. Even 27 an hour is not getting me anywhere. Eventually, I got an offer for when I was gonna leave. I got an offer at a different site to go back to my first initial site that was paying me 18 an hour. They offered me maybe 32 an hour. But that's when all the rent and everything had already gone up by then. And I was like, I can't afford this. I'll still be back with the same roommates. I'm like, this isn't going to work. So I was like, I could always go back to any of those three options, those two options of those jobs. I have job security there. But I was like, okay, well, if I'm solid there and I've got savings and my retirement savings and I've got savings from those jobs, from working there, living cheap, living with all these roommates for all this time, because I don't think I ever paid more than like, I don't think I ever paid more than like 660 or 760 a month for rent. So I was saving a lot of money. But the amount I was saving at a certain point was not worth the people I was living with. I was just like, I can't do this. Like, I can't have people waking me up at like 3 in the morning. I can't be living with people that are fighting when I'm in the middle of work and they're like arguing in the hallway and I'm like talking to a patient on the phone. This is not going to work. They were just out of control. Nice to me. They were all nice to me. They were always nice to me. But that's my rant and venting about all that. But that's the before. So all of that led to me being like, okay, like while I'm in this transitional phase with career, let me just do what all these people know what they're telling me to do. The professionals are telling me to do. Let me do what they're telling me to do. Because I hadn't applied to a job in like, what, like 10, 15 years? The last thing I had applied to was grad school. Like, I hadn't applied to anything in like 15 years. And so back then, it was different than what it is now. Like, I hadn't had to apply to anything because I had been in grad school and then I was working. So it was almost a 15-year period where I was basically just like working the whole time or in school the whole time and then working. So, the whole market had changed, the whole application process had changed. Um, I used to walk my resumes into offices. I used to sit down and talk to the manager, just like knock on the door and just they'll get the manager out, come in your business suit and they'll see you. They'll make an appointment or they'll tell you when you could come back and you had your resume and your CV and your transcripts or whatever they needed you to bring in and you'd sit and you'd basically schedule your own interviews. That's how I got jobs before. Like this whole thing with LinkedIn and all that was not like a thing, it was, but it kind of wasn't. Not like it is now. Um, so yeah, there's like a very steep learning curve to all that. And so, I get this flyer for Perscolas and they tell me everything to do on there. I call like the day of or the next day. I call and talk to a nice gentleman on the phone who was one of the representatives of the program. I eventually got to meet this person in person. But at that time, it was a name and like an email or address on a flyer. I texted it or called whatever it said, and then they texted or called me back. I asked questions like, "Can you explain like how does this go?" Like the flyer was straightforward, but I was like, I wanted to know if there's more to it. And then they kind of told me what to do. I think they texted me back the link, and they're like, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call, because the date was coming up to have to get in, and they're like, well, you probably want to submit everything by this date because we still have to interview you, and then they have to still decide who's getting in. So I was like, okay, I gotta like bang all this out. Now I don't know if I wrote the dates down of when. It looks like I interviewed maybe near October 20 something of 2025. The acceptance date was October 27th of 2025. The start date was November 10th of 2025 and the last day of class, graduation day, was February 27th of 2026. Um and I got hired in um May of 2026. At the job that I'm starting in June of 2026. So, it's even when I had a foot in the door and when things were going, the way I wanted them to go, it's still wait, I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting. Like I'm still, you know, um, in the early phases of things, but it's taken a lot of time. But I haven't just like done nothing. I've been building a portfolio. I've been networking with classmates, talking to people, you know. So basically, the phases before that was the phase. Like, that was kind of my whole backstory. So, people who don't know it, if you're new to me, to hearing me ranting about all this stuff and just yammering on and on about things, that's kind of the backstory. There's a lot. There's some dramatic parts to it. If you want to know those, go back to 2020 episodes and you'll see kind of the stuff I was complaining about back at that time. But actually don't. It's kind of I probably should take that stuff down. But it got me through to just be on the internet ranting about stuff, honestly. Um so yeah, near October 20th, I remember before that there were guests in town. We had guests come over. I didn't really tell my family I was getting into this program. I didn't really tell them much of anything, or trying to apply to it or anything. I just know that there was a day where I had an interview, and I was all like irritated about something. But I remember there was a day where I had the interview. It was after the guests had left. I remember when I was doing the tech prep work, which was getting 2 certifications that they give you the information of the online course to do. Um, there were 2 courses to do. I think one was something about hardware and the other one was something about networking. And you'd have to listen to the lectures and do the quizzes and do what you needed to do and take the test to get a certain amount of a high enough score to get enough passing scores to be able to get those certifications through Cisco. I think it was through Cisco. But all the information is on the application of what they say to do. I think I had to have a resume ready. I had to have a to apply. The application process was the tech prep work, the application, and some other types of career development related worksheets talking about kind of like your work history, kind of like your transition into this field, like what interests you generally, kind of like what are your plans like. It wasn't just like I want to start this class on this day and you just like log in the day of the class. Like, you had to read more about it, learn more about it. um you know think about how are you going to support yourself for like almost 4 months, when you're in class intensively. Can you work while you're in this class? I don't know. I could not. I think maybe the most I was able to do would have been maybe weekends, couple hours here and there, Ubering, and that's like if I'm listening to lectures in the background. Um, but yeah, the labs take a lot of time. You have assignments due. They start stacking up. They're due by a certain date, and they do check them, so you do need to submit them on time. Um, but yeah, the everything before, it wasn't just like a simple like I want to do this. Like, I would say you need to give yourself probably a couple weeks before, maybe up to 4 weeks. You could probably do it in 2 weeks to try to get the interview and pass the interview and stuff too, because it might take them a couple days to decide. You don't want to start. You don't want to not know like till like right the day before. Sorry, the bus is talking. Um. Uh. Yeah, you want to basically do everything they say to do before the interview, but don't don't wait till the last second because it takes a lot of work and it's going to show. You're going to need to proofread the stuff that you're submitting. um and if you don't have experience or if you're not used to talking about technology at all, because I'm a lot more familiar with talking about it now in a more organized way. This probably doesn't sound like it at all, but I'm a lot more familiar with it now because I did spend quite a few months, getting used to talking about it. Um, but yeah, it's still, it takes a while to get familiar. And at the time when I applied, I was already super stressed. I was pretty overwhelmed. I was like, this car I'm driving is not going to last forever. I can't do Uber Eats forever. Um, that's going to go out the window pretty soon. And I was like, do I really want to drop like multiple thousands of dollars on a car that gets like 10 to 14 miles to gallon in LA where gas is sometimes like $6, $7 a gallon? It's like, that doesn't make any sense. And driving all over the place doing Uber Eats, and it's like you're barely making any money. Like some days you don't even really get orders, or you're making like $20 profit for working like 4 or 5 hours. Like, yeah, it's money, but it's like it's not good money. Um, and even starting, a lot of people, were starting jobs. A lot of people in the class that got work, we're still starting. We're new, and so we're still gonna have to work our way up the ladder from where we start. And so it's just the start. This is just the start. So, you know, but I mean, I'm not knocking it. I don't have any regrets at all. But that's kind of what I would explain. Um, is there's stuff to do beforehand, so you want to look into it early. And the cohorts start at certain times, and so if the next one doesn't work for you, you can see when the following one is. I think winter you get a winter break. I think summer you get like a summer vacation. Um, I don't know the dates off the top of my head anymore. I don't have my laptop out here with me. Um, I've taken most of the stuff off my laptop anyways, and it's on an external hard drive that requires a wall plug, so I can't really bring it all out here. Um, I don't know. I guess my Wi-Fi reaches though. I guess it reaches to the driveway. I get better um internet out here than I do in my bedroom. That's crazy. Um, I don't know if I'm on data. Maybe I'm on data, but yeah. So that yeah, this is like a little over 30 minutes now. So that's what I would say is the early phases. You want to at least give yourself 2 to 4 weeks before the interviewing to get all this other stuff done because it takes a long time. Like if you're already working or in school, and uh, if you're already working, it's gonna be I don't know. I can't discourage somebody from doing something, but I don't know how someone could literally be in class. You have when the class starts, you have to be on the camera like this. Like you can't fake it, and you can't be just driving all over town like doing work and stuff in another office. You have to be like paying attention and like taking notes and stuff. Um, and you want to follow the rules. Do it right. Do it like they say. Do it right. You want to do it right. Um, and treat it like it's a job. Treat these instructors, treat everybody, treat the class members like they're your coworkers, and treat these instructors like they're your bosses. That's the best thing I would recommend. Just keep it professional, treat it like it's work. You got to interview like it's work. You got to submit stuff like it's work. Um, treat it all like work, and it'll show. Even before you even get the interview, treat that like it's job, like it's job assignments. The assignments they tell you to submit or they recommend to do the things they recommend, even if it's not required. Do it. Just do all of it. I That's what I would say. Do all of the stuff that they recommend. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So I'm gonna record the next one after this. It's getting kind of dark, so let me try and speed through this. But yeah, thanks for listening.